Hello everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to the first Pick It video in forever! It's so strange to be sitting on the couch with all these crazy things surrounding me. And yeah, we're going to have a good discussion about them today, and thank you so much for everyone who has waited so long for me to finally do another one of these. I know I kind of went on the whole spiel in my previous video, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much, but I do just want to give a big thanks to everyone who has been waiting so patiently for another one of these things finally. Part of the problem is, though, as I did mention, is that it's just harder to come by cool things to talk about, cool pickups these days. It used to be, I mean, that's for two reasons, and I've gone over these already, but just for people who may not have watched the previous announcement. One, because it's just so difficult to find super cool and rare things out there today. I mean, thrift stores definitely aren't delivering like they used to, and overall, even things like swap meets are drying up of the super old stuff. You're seeing a lot more things like PS2, GameCube, and Xbox these days. And yeah, secondly, I have a lot of things. So it's kind of, I mean, even when I do see things that are pretty cool, there are often things that I don't necessarily need to pick up, but then, show in the videos, because, like I said, I've been doing this for like 3 or 4 years now. So, I mean, I've done a lot of pickup videos in that time, and, as you do pickup videos, obviously you're never going to need to pick those things up again. So, it's getting a little bit difficult to find super cool things to show, but as you will see in this video, there are still things out there. So, I am hoping that you will enjoy what I am about to show today, as there's a good mix of old, new, different consoles. So, without further ado, let's get started. And as normal, we will start off with the NES. Now, this is the only NES game, new NES game, that I have picked up in quite some time. Again, just because they're getting so hard to find. And that is everybody's favorite Sunday Funday. Now, initially, it may look nice and shiny as if it were sealed, but what the person did, that's such a weird thing to do. I mean, if you're going to open it, it's like, why not just rip the plastic right off? I mean, I think I did it a couple times as a kid too. But they opened it at the top, but kind of left the original plastic wrap on. But yeah, Sunday Funday. It is the Bible, or, Christian version of Menace Beach, after they became Wisdom Tree. And it's a pretty funky game, and I now have it complete in the box. And yeah, that's another kind of step towards completing my NES collection, which is getting there, but again, as I mentioned, you just don't see hardly any NES games out there these days. I mean, especially the rare ones. Like, I recently went to a swap meet, and the only really rare NES game there was DuckTales 2. Which sold really fast, but I mean, I already have DuckTales 2. But that's the thing, a lot of the NES games I'm missing are the 2s that came out really late in the NES life. I mean, you got like Godzilla 2, Power Blade 2, Rescue Rangers 2, Flintstones 2, and then like a few other things, like Color a Dinosaur, which is probably one of the least rare of the things I just mentioned. Although overall, my gray officially licensed cart collection is pretty much there. A lot of the other things that I still need to get are some of, the Bible, or not Bible, the Wisdom Tree ones. But overall, I'm really getting down to that wire now, where it's like, in order to find new NES games, you pretty much have to pay gigantic amounts of money. Like, Little Samson's another one, which is like multiple hundreds of dollars these days. So yeah, that's why, despite the fact it's been months since my last pickup video, Sunday Funday is the only new NES game to add to my collection. But with that said, it doesn't mean that there aren't other NES-related things that we can talk about today, including the complete in the box, because when you think of peripherals like this, you don't usually think of them coming in boxes. You usually just think of them as is. But this is the Cartridge Cabinet, which does exactly what it shows on the front there. Although the box is actually in very nice shape. You don't have very much rubbing around the sides or anything like that, as you usually seem to find on boxes that are about 30 years old now. And yeah, it holds 18 of your NES games. It is weird. I mean, I love things like this because, like I said, when you see, like you go to swap meets and sometimes you come across them at thrift stores, you see the cabinet itself, but you don't normally think about, what kind of packaging that it has. So, to find completely random things that you normally wouldn't think about, that's something that I enjoy doing. Next up on the NES list, we have a really bizarre peripheral, which is really strange. I had never heard about it before I saw it, and then once I saw it, I knew I had to have it because it was just that bizarre. And that is the Speedboard, which claims to be the fastest way to play your Nintendo Entertainment System, as it puts the speed at your fingertips. So what this is, unfortunately, As you can see, I don't know what exactly would cause some kind of destruction like that. Someone must have put something on the front that then got ripped off. But the point is, of course, what's inside. I mean, that's nice to have a good condition box. But what we have is this. You have to put your own controller in there, so it's not attached or anything. It just kind of sticks in. But yeah, apparently this thing will allow you to play your NES games faster than any other kind of crazy peripheral out there. Now, I don't know about you, but having to use your index fingers to control everything rather than your thumbs doesn't seem to be the fastest way to do anything. So I mean, normally I guess you would put this on something, and then you're pretty much gonna have to, you know, use these to use the control. So I guess if you're a PC gamer, yeah, maybe this will get you into, you know, the NES. So it feels like you're using a keyboard or something like that. But otherwise, I don't know. Like, it's one of the most bizarre ways I've ever played a video game when I tried it out for myself. And as you can see on the back, it says you can use it on the floor, on the couch, on the table, or, you know, you can just hold your controller the way it's supposed to be held, and you could, you know, play it anywhere pretty much. So it's just so bizarre that someone thought that there was a need to make a piece of plastic to put your NES controller in. It doesn't do anything else. It's honestly, you take the NES controller out, and it's a piece of plastic. It doesn't plug into anything. There's no rapid fire button. It's a piece of plastic that, you know, you could fan someone with in the summer or something. But it's just one of the most bizarre peripherals I've ever seen, and I question how it put the speed at anybody's fingertips, because it's just that bizarre. But I could go on about this all day. It's just the weirdest thing. But like I said, maybe if, you know, you're a PC gamer who likes, you know, using your index fingers on the keyboard and stuff, maybe it's your kind of thing. Maybe it was you know, meant to get everyone over from the VIC-20 or something over to the NES. I don't know, but it's a weird thing. And if there's anybody out there who, you know, had one as a kid and loved it, I'd love to hear your story about it in the comments below. But before I go on about that anymore, what I'm about to show next is super cool and something I have wanted for years and years and years. So I recently jumped at the chance to buy one complete in the box. Unfortunately, this isn't like, you know, an awesome $5 thrift store find or anything like that. I did pay pretty much what it's worth, but it's something I've always wanted. So I finally bit the bullet. And that is a complete in-box AV Famicom. So just like we had the top-loading NES 2, Japan had the AV Famicom. Now this is a lot cooler than our NES 2 though, for a number of reasons. The number one reason is that it actually has a port on the back where you can plug in an AV cable, which is pretty much the same as the one that then worked for the Super Nintendo 64 and GameCube, which gives you, you know, pretty much perfect picture on, well, I mean, perfect for, you know, back then. And good sound quality, unlike the you used to have to use the RF with the original NES and with the Famicom. So that gives you, you know, better quality all around. Plus, I guess I could try to take it out here. People will know I hate taking things out on videos because you just never know when you're gonna break something. So it comes with two dog bone controllers. You can kind of see them. They're over here. But the interesting thing about this is that because people who are familiar with the original Nintendo Famicom, its controllers were built in. Meanwhile, once the AV Famicom came around, as you see, the design is similar to the NES 2, except it doesn't have that weird bump that kind of comes up, and of course the cartridges aren't interchangeable. What I mean by that is you can't put NES cartridges in the AV Famicom, but you can put your own controllers in the front. So they're no longer built in, and you can use the dog bone ones that came with it, or you can of course use you know, your normal NES controllers as well, which is really cool. And of course, the original Famicom, the cords were really short, so I love this thing to be able to play my Famicom games. Plus, on the side, you have the port for things like the disk system and the gun, which used to be the only way to use peripherals on the original Famicom. But now, of course, you can also plug some things in the front. Because it has those two ports, so that's super cool. Now let's not. I'm not going to put this completely back in the box. But yes, the AV Famicom is a super cool thing, and it's just, I don't understand why they cheaped out so badly on the NES 2. If they were going to put AV functionality into the Japanese version, why does America or North America always get the, you know, the lame end of things? I wonder. It's such a shame because it's not even like the NES 2 has the same video quality as the original NES. It's actually worse because again, it only has RF, and you get the whole scan line thing going on, so it doesn't even look as good as the original NES did, which is why I used to use an NES2 on my TV, although I've actually since hooked up a really good front loader that I have, which still pretty much works every time, as the pins in it are really good. But still, it's a shame that you have to do that. Like, why does the NES2 have to be so bad? I don't know. It's crazy. Although, one final thing I want to talk about related to the Famicom is I was just talking about how it's cool that for the Famicom 2, you can kind of use whichever controllers you want. I did find this peripheral Famicom controller, which has a plug, which plugs into either the side of the AV Famicom 2 or into the normal expansion port on the front of the original Famicom. So if you don't want to use the controllers that are built into that for whatever reason, you can use this thing right here, which is of course very Famicom stylish, very similar to the Famicom style, and it has rapid fire switches on top. So that's cool. I like things like that, in case I ever want to, use that. So that's pretty much most of the NES related things that I have to discuss, and that has already been like 10 minutes. This is crazy. Okay, so Sunday Funday can go over there. And now, we must decide what we want to move on to next. We started kind of old, so why don't we jump into the future a little bit, talk a little bit about GameCube. There's not a supermassive amount for any kind of the other consoles. Actually, there wasn't that much Famicom. I just kind of rambled forever. But we will talk about these things. I did recently go to a swap meet, which is where a good number of these things came from, but not all of them. This right here, it's funny, we still have quite a few more Japanese things to talk about. So actually, a good chunk of these things are Japanese. It's a funny coincidence now that I look at it. This right here, it was $1, and usually when you find games for $1, they're not the best games, and I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't necessarily consider this the best game ever. But what it is a game. After not doing this for a while, getting tongue-tied, but it's still good. It's a game that was never released in North America, and unfortunately, of course, doesn't have, the nice cardboard overlay or anything like that. But that is Donkey Kong 3. How many people even knew that there was a third one in Japan? I mean, heck, how many people even really cared that there was a second one in North America? I guess that's the better question. I did not necessarily not long ago. I did a while ago actually play Donkey Konga. No, this is Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat on the GameCube, which is an interesting game, and is one of 3, which then used the bongos here, which the other ones would be Donkey Kong 1 and 2. But there was a third one in Japan, which was then never localized. Not that the songs would have been the same anyway. But yeah, I just thought it was really interesting that someone was selling Donkey Kong 3 for $1, and since it's a game that never came here, and it's kind of an interesting, even just to be able to tell the story about Donkey Kong 3 never coming here, it was worth that $1. Although I promise that these other GameCube games are a little bit more interesting than that. Next up, we have Pokemon Box. Now, Pokemon Box was that crazy thing, which again, some people might not have even heard of Pokemon Box, which actually was released in North America, but it's just so rare and ridiculously obscure that lots of people don't even really know if it's of its existence. What it was it was a GameCube game, which you could transfer your Pokemon from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire onto a GameCube memory card in case all of your boxes were filling up in your Game Boy Advance games. Now, if anybody actually filled up all of those boxes, because how many spaces do you actually get? It's been a long time since I've played the original Game Boy Advance games. I'm actually currently playing through Sapphire on the 3DS right now, but I don't know if you get the same number of spaces. But either way, just the fact that they made a game that was there's not like any other kind of game in here. It's not like what's it called? There's no like adventure mode or anything. It's just for storing your Pokemon from the Game Boy games. So yeah, I mean, if you actually filled up your cartridge and needed this, that's pretty incredible. This is the Japanese version, which is a lot more common than the North American version, although before I get on that, I will show you everything that's in here. Of course, Donkey Konga 3 is supposed to look like this. It's supposed to have a really nice cardboard thing that comes off. It's supposed to have the plastic case with a nice book inside. And one of the things I really like about this is that it includes a really kind of cool half red, half blue memory card, which is, of course, meant to be used with the game. Animal Crossing had a similar thing where it came with a memory card because it just took up so much space that pretty much you would have had to buy a memory card if you had not, got one included with it. But in North America, the only way to get your hands on this game was I believe you could get it as a special pre-order bonus if you pre-ordered Pokemon Coliseum at Nintendo World in New York. Actually, it wasn't Nintendo World back then. That was back when it was the Pokemon Center, which you know, kind of specialized in all kind of Pokemon games and merch, and which then became a Nintendo World as it is now. But I don't remember if you could just buy it separately or if you had the pre-order Pokemon Coliseum, or maybe you just had to buy Pokemon Coliseum and then you got it as a bonus with it. But it was pretty much, I think, only offered at that store. So if you lived anywhere else, you were pretty much toast. Just like how, it's really lame actually, how for Mario Kart 8, I mean Europe, of course, all of Europe got the special Mario Kart 8 edition, but if you wanted to get it in North America and didn't want to import it, I think the only way to get it was by pre-ordering it at the Nintendo World store, which is really lame. There's just so many cool things that, you know, why can't I get my hands on? Why do I have to, you know, travel all the way to New York if I want to get these things, or buy it off eBay for like $1 million? So that's the story behind Pokemon Box, a weird game which did have a localization, but it's worth like, you know, over 5 times as much as the Japanese version, which I bought just because it is such a cool thing. And I really like the memory card in there as well, which of course, you know, I don't think the memory cards are region locked, so you can use that if I really wanted to. I do think that the game is kind of locked, though. I don't think I could use my North American game with the Japanese Pokemon box, but again, I don't think I'm ever actually going to fill up my Ruby and Sapphire boxes, so we should be good. We should be good with that. Next up on the GameCube agenda is Digimon World 4. Part of me wants to think that I've talked about Digimon World in the past. It's not a series I've unfortunately ever really gotten into. So tell me in the comments below what you think of Digimon World. In fact, Digimon, I mean, my fondest memories of Digimon will always be, you know, when I used to rush home from elementary school, and then you'd sit down, I mean, there's this, like, throw the homework into the garbage, and then you would watch Pokemon, Digimon, Metabots, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Monster Rancher, and just, like, oh my gosh, it used to be so much fun to just run home from school and watch anime. Before I even knew it was called anime, it was just, you know, cartoons back then. Before Japan dominated the world, pretty much. Well, my most recent experience with Digimon was a couple of weeks ago. I actually went to a Japanese restaurant for a friend's birthday, and you know, you go to, you know, to some restaurants and they have big screens where they're showing, you know, the sports or whatever, or that recent boxing match, which I've heard, you know, differing opinions about. But at this Japanese restaurant, they had this big screen and they were showing the original season of Digimon on it. So that was a lot of fun. I mean, we were there for 2 hours. It was a birthday get-together. We kept ordering food, and yeah, you just, you know, sat back and watched Digimon while you waited. It was actually, it was a really fun night. So yeah, that was my most recent Digimon experience. And as I said, it was the first season, so I mean, you're just sitting there, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that from back when I was a kid. Good times. Good times. Next up on the GameCube agenda is, you know, this game, no. This is actually a thrift store find, so one of the few gems which I have come across out in the wild and have not paid ridiculously for, despite the fact that, for some reason, it is worth a ridiculous amount. Fire Emblem, I almost said Pool of Radiance, which I believe is a Dungeons & Dragons game for NES. Path of Radiance. On the GameCube, Fire Emblem games, I mean, there's this one, there's the Wii one. I guess they were just some, you know, some of the first Fire Emblem games that were localized, so they probably didn't have gigantic production runs. They're not super massive like they are today, so it's actually worth quite a bit. So to find something like this at a thrift store, one of the few gems out there, but not like in the past where you used to go to you know, find at least, you know, one really cool thing every week. Pretty much, it's just you get lucky, you know, much less often these days, unfortunately. But still, that's a very cool find. And also, it's not GameCube, but it was underneath Fire Emblem. Should probably have put a lot more things on top of it, because this is just dumb. It is the only Sega thing, so I guess we might as well get it out of the way now. What is by far the best item in my collection, now that it has entered it, a sealed copy of Shaq Fu. You can still see the tab on the back there. It's all nice and shiny, but the best part is that it includes, I do not want to sit on Fire Emblem, and you could probably see it, possibly, but we'll zoom in just for emphasis. Free inside, Shaq Rap CD single. By far, makes this one of the most awesome things in my collection, I assure you. It doesn't give any more details about it than that, so I mean, I don't know what single it is. Should I just like break it open right now so we can all get a listen? It's probably on the internet somewhere, but I just thought that was hilarious, and then deemed that this was something that my collection needed for some reason. And now it is a part of it. So let's put those over there. And let's see what we should move on to next.